listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Okay, it's the GM Shuffle. Week 10, of course, concludes tonight with the Miami Dolphins and Los Angeles Rams as we say hi to the big guy, Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Meagher. Michael, I think we have to start. We're going to talk about the shitty teams. Don't worry. We'll get to that 4 o'clock window as well. Michael's fired up today. No surprise on a Monday morning. But we have to start with my one pride Detroit Lions last night. 16 points. They're down at the half. 5 picks from your boy, Jared Goff, and a winner, 26-23. How about Dan Campbell and the Honolulu Blue and Silver?
You got it. Look, when you turn the ball over 5 times, okay, and you still win the game, you hold the opponent to no points in the second half. Now, look, Stroud threw you 2. I get that. But at the end of the day, I mean, you hold the team to 16 first downs. You know, even though they were 40% on third down, you still did a good enough job. You were able to stop their run game. They only had 248 yards of total. They averaged 3.8. Credit this Lions defense, really, for keeping them in it, right? I mean, that's what it was. I think what we saw from Detroit is they're resolved. They were the only team to practice on the day of the election. They wanted to go out there. They wanted to be in the building. They wanted to do it. I think there's a chemistry and there's a resolve around this team that you can't deny. In this game, you easily could have said, okay, we screwed this up. We're going to go home. We're going to pout. But, you know, the Texans, which we know that last year they couldn't run the ball. Right. This year they've improved a little bit, but this game they had no run game to really offset it. And, you know, they don't score in the second half. I think Houston's the bigger story here, Patrick. I think Houston's a little bit of a fraudulent team. I think they really are. I don't think they're as good as their record. I think they've gotten away with a few things. Now, look, if they can get back Nico Collins but they can't really run the football. They're not as good as you think they are on defense. They're the 31st team in touchdowns allowed passing, but they rally the football. They play really hard for D'Amico. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but in a league where we have a lot of shitty teams, they look like a better team than they really are. And I think that's the point here.
And they're terrible. And this is a great stat, Michael, from Elliott. They're terrible in the second half. They're not scoring in the second half. They're 1-9 ATS against the spread in the second. I don't know what that means to you as far as halftime adjustments, doing nothing in the second half, but that's not great for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations.
One of the things that stood out to me when I was going over the games this week was the fact that Fairbairn's 10 for 12 on kicks outside of 50 yards. And if you take those 30 points away from this team, they would be, the 50-yard kicks. There was a time when that was a hard kick to make, right? And now they were making them. So to me, their margin of error, he made a 56-yarder last night. Think about that. He made a 56-yarder and a 58 was wide left. So, I mean, you take those 33 points out of their offense, where are they really? I mean, I think to me, that's where I got to on the Houston Texans just being an average team. They're not great. They're not bad, but they look a lot better than they really are because the league sucks. There's 11 teams that suck. It's really embarrassing. It really is. It's because we've gotten into this world where we want collaboration. Nobody comes in with a plan. Nobody says this is who we are. What I bitch all the time about, overpaying for good players. I mean, Shane Steichen makes $9 million a year. Do you think he's a $9 million a year coach with his decision-making? I think he's a really good play caller. He's a shitty head coach. Let's just put it out there. He hasn't improved one bit as a head coach. As a leader of men, he hasn't done that. He hasn't managed it. Where we watch Mike Tomlin, and you and I both know, Patrick, we spent every show this offseason talking about how the Steelers aren't going to win, right? This man's a leader. This man understands how to manage the game. Whatever they paid Jim Harbaugh at the Chargers, it wasn't enough. Correct. Compared to, if you're paying Harbaugh $12 million, you're paying Shane Steichen $9 million, who's got the better deal? Think about that for a minute. It's not even close. And you say, well, who should we hire? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I think I know the answer that you better find some people that understand how to ask one question. Like if I were giving a job interview, I wouldn't say, what scheme are we running? What are we going to run on defense? Hey, who are you going to hire? I want to know, how are you going to win the game? That's the first question you ask in any – how are you going to win the game? right? And if he can't answer that in a three-dimensional way, you got no chance. It's just obvious. It's so obvious.
I'll tell you who can answer it, and I'm not sandbagging. The Lions have never won a Super Bowl, and whether or not the advanced stats geeks want to believe in momentum or vibes, I don't care. But if you have 5 picks from Jared Goff and you win a football game on the road 26-23 in primetime, Dan Campbell's got something special here. I'm telling you right now, this is a Super Bowl team. He's got something special.
It is a Super Bowl team. And let me tell you, add a little bit more to it. He's gotten better defensively. When Aaron Glenn first showed up there, they were not very good. Aaron Glenn wasn't very good. But Aaron Glenn has improved. He really has. He's improved, and their defense has improved. Their tackling has improved. Their toughness has improved. Their mental and physical toughness has improved. And to me, that's the mark of what the head coach brings to the table. And I think, to me, look, the first year, he had Anthony Lynn calling plays. He took that away from him. Head coach. He didn't wait too long to do it. He stepped in and did it. Then he made Ben Johnson. I mean, he makes decisions that he had to make. That's what a head coach is. Now let's use Shane Steichen as an example. When have they gotten any better on defense since he's been the head coach there? What area have they improved on since he's been the head coach? Right? Let's take Jonathan Gannon. I didn't think Jonathan Gannon would have been a great head coach. I think the guy's done a remarkable job. I think he's really good. He's coached. They don't have very good talent in terms of what they do, but they coach really good on defense. Petzik has improved their offense every single year. Even last year with Joshua Dobbs, they were playing half decent. So they're 6-4. To me, the head coach matters, but he's got to be the head coach of how do we improve the team. This whole idea of, we got to make Trevor Lawrence better. I mean, Jacksonville just went out and had one of the worst performances that they could ever possibly have, right? I mean, they're one of the worst. It's a joke. I mean, offensively, I think they had one of the worst offensive performances in the league in their history.
Talk about coaching. Let's talk about a walk-off with a blocked field goal. The Chiefs somehow, some way, are 9-0. Dude, they're not like this is going to be tough for a Broncos team that's 5-5. I think they're fine, but that's a tough loss. I think the Broncos outplayed the Chiefs on the field. 16-14 a winner. The Chiefs moved to 9-0.
They just find ways to win, right? I mean, I think to me that's the mark of a good team. You just find ways to win. And Bo Nix, look, let's talk about the value of coaching. Don't you think Sean Payton? Think about this for a second. DeMeco Ryans turns down the Denver job. If he doesn't turn down the Denver job, okay, and say then Sean Payton's not coaching last year. He's not coaching. He didn't have a job. Carolina interviewed him and had no interest. See, but that's the difference here, right? Carolina didn't want him. He got the job, and now it looks like you're paying him $12 million a year, $15 million, whatever you're paying him. It's a lot better than paying Steichen $10 million a year or $9 million. You're getting way more. He's improving his team, and he's carrying $80 million of cap debt on Russell, and he's made Bo Nix a better player. Okay, what are you paying Eberflus? He's coaching Caleb Williams. And you're paying Sean Payton, who everybody made fun of for drafting Bo Nix. I mean, this is a game they had a chance to win. They just missed it. The field goal gets blocked. They sacked Mahomes 4 times in the game. The longest pass play the Chiefs had was 35 yards, and it was to the running back. So it made them work. They couldn't really run the ball on them. I mean, they couldn't run the ball. They stopped the run game. Give Vance Joseph and this whole staff in Denver credit. Maybe they didn't win the game, but goddamn, Bo Nix is getting better. Meanwhile, Caleb Williams isn't getting any better.
Check this out. The Chiefs have won 11 straight regular season games, and in that span, they've outscored their opponents by 67 points. So that's margins, that's coaching, that's organizational. I mean, they're not outscoring anybody, but they're winning games. That's just what it comes down to. It's on the margins.
Mahomes is 19-14 when his team trails by 10 points. 19-14. Brady was 42-62 coming back. Montana was 17-29. I mean, you're talking about the historic numbers, and look, it's just been remarkable because they have that. Because why? You could say all you want about Andy Reid being an offensive coach. They scored 16 freaking points in the game. That's not Andy Reid's style. But they find what they answer the question: how are we going to win this game today? Which is a really sad commentary on the league. Are their numbers flashy? Of course not. I mean, Kelsey averaged under 10 yards a catch. But they're finding ways they convert third downs, they score, and then they make plays when they need to make plays. And they did this all with the cap restrictions in terms of they got rid of Tyreek Hill and they become a better team.
We'll get to the games in particular, but the theme I kept thinking about you yesterday, when I'm watching, it's a lot of bad football. The Vikings 12-7 over the Jags. Dougie P after the game telling reporters you wouldn't know if I broke down the offensive plays. How about the Saints? I've told you that Falcons team is fraudulent, Michael. I mean, they just go to New Orleans. They've got a special teams coordinator running the Saints, and they beat them 20-17. Just a lot of bad football in Germany. Gross. Dayball's got questions to answer.
Can we have a moment? Can we have a moment on Germany? Why do those people? Why did they love Country Roads for West Virginia's song over there? Two things that made that game appealing, Patrick, was the pretzels look ridiculously good. I mean, that looked like holy shit. I mean, did they not look good?
Yeah,
it looked
absolutely.
And the beer looked good too. I mean, but look, where are you if you're the New York Football Giants? And we're going to come back to that after the break. But where are you? Just say you're John Mara today. You fire Coughlin, you hire McAdoo. 2 years later, you fire him. You hire Pat Shurmur. 2 years later, you fire him. You hire Joe Judge. 2 years later, you fire him. Now you have Brian Daboll. What are you doing here? At what point do you say, maybe there's something else wrong here? I mean, to me, that was a loss that tells you if you're the owner of the franchise, you might want to think about how am I going to recommit my friend? Because the Giants if they think they're going to change a coach and not change anything else and win, they're really out. They're really smoking something funny.
I'll give you one name, William Belichick. He loves the organization. They have to do something major.
But
it's the Giants.
When we come back, but they won't get him to say yes because they're so dysfunctional everywhere. It's hard to – my reason I cite those four coaches is because nobody can win there. We'll talk about it when we come back.
Game of the weekend, Steelers, Commanders. When we come back, GM Shuffle. A lot of bad football. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Maher.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle, presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. A lot of bad football. The big guy, Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Maher. This is the GM Shuffle. So I'm just going through this, and we're going to get to Dayball and the Giants. But if you take a look at what we're dealing with here, the Bears, Eberflus, he gone. They're 4-5. They fall to the Patriots. We'll talk about that coming up in just a bit. But if you keep looking, you were talking about Steichen. The Saints are going to need a new head coach. The Vikings, the Jags are going to need a new head coach. I'm going to put you in a tough spot here with the Panthers beating the Giants. That's embarrassing. 20-17, their country roads in Germany. The Giants are 2-8. You know Dayball, so I'm sorry to do this, but what the hell does that proud franchise do moving forward, the Giants?
Well, I think I think it's not really related to Dayball. It's related to John Mara, the owner. I think he has to sit in his room and say, what I have. The problem with the Giants, Patrick, is John Mara is the most incredibly loyal person in the world. He doesn't want to change. They have a lot of people that work in that company that have been legacies. They work there. There's no accountability. There's no, you could lose your job. Everybody's on tenure, if you will. And it's because he's such a nice man. There's nobody is demanding excellence in the building, okay? Because no one can get fired. So if you're the video guy in the building, you're really not worried about losing your job if you don't do a good job. If you're the trainer, you're not worried about losing your job. There's no accountability or responsibility, right? And I think it starts because John is such a nice man. And he's such a loyal person that once you become a Giant, you can't get fired. Now, the coaches, they keep changing the coaches, but the structure, the infrastructure of the organization, is really bad. And I think, to me, they would have a hard time convincing Coach Belichick or any good coach to go in there and take that job unless John's willing to say, okay, I'll stay on, I'll be the president, but you you change my organization. We're going to need some people to retire here. We're going to need to move forward. We can't run. I mean, the three people that run the organization are John Mara, Ronnie Barnes, the trainer. He has a parking spot there. He's as influential as any human being in the building. Wonderful man. I'm not sure he should have as much authority as he does, but he's a wonderful human being. But he's not changed, so you got this, and they hired Joe Shane, who is, to me, if you just watched him in Hard Knocks, you'd have to say he's not qualified to be a general manager the way he was. Oh, what's our team look like? They acted like they had a good team this offseason.
Yeah.
I've been sitting here saying this forever. I mean, McAdoo goes to the playoffs and loses a wild card game when they all took that boat trip, and then they come back, and he doesn't even make it through the season. He gets fired. Spagnuolo comes in and takes over for him. Then they hire Pat Shurmur, and he produces 9 wins in 2 years. Then they hire Joe Judge, and he produces 10 wins in 2 years. And now they've hired Daboll, and he produces 17 wins in 3 years. I mean, so there's something internally wrong within the building. And if you don't change that, if John's not willing to change that, you can bring in a new coach. You can hire Mike Vrabel and probably will make you better, but Vrabel's going to have the same problems that everybody else had. He's going to want to work for Joe Shane. He's going to want to work for some of the people. I think there's a lack of accountability that permeates throughout the whole building.
Okay, but let's be real. You just mentioned Vrabel. All right, Belichick's going to coach next year. Again, not putting you in a tough spot, but he deserves it. He wants it. What's a good spot?
Coach, right?
He's going to. And so I'm looking at these jobs that are going to be available. The Bears are going to be available. The Jags are going to be available. The Giants, maybe they stick with Daboll. The Saints, obviously available. Like, where is a good spot right now for a Vrabel, hypothetically, or a Belichick next year? Is it the Jags?
See, I think what people misconstrue about this whole idea, you can't let Belichick run the personnel, you just let him coach, which is I disagree completely with. Because for Bill to be successful as a coach, he needs to build his program from everywhere. It needs to be run like Jim Harbaugh's running his program, or like Sean Payton's running his program. Sean Payton, I'm sure, listens to other people in the building on personnel. But to get the infrastructure of the building correct, the only job that looks like, and I don't know if Shah Khan will do this in Jacksonville, but I think the only place that would give Bill the authority to bring in his organization, to bring in his team, to get people alignment, what Bill wants to do is hire alignment. He wants to hire people that are aligned with his philosophical nature. It's harder to change people into the alignment than it is to hire people to fulfill the alignment. So I think that would be the question. I think Jacksonville certainly would handle that. But here's where I think you got to be careful, because we've seen this with when the Raiders, with Josh going to the Raiders, or Patricia going to Detroit, or even Bill when he was with us in Cleveland. To get the players to buy into this requires you have a really good core of group players. Would Jacksonville want to work hard? They haven't been working hard. You got a lot of guys under contract who make a lot of money down there. They're going to start bitching as soon as they start working hard. Then they're going to run to the owner. And then they're going to have dissension within the building. You're going to start reading, well, nobody likes Belichick here in Jacksonville. You're going to start, so you have to think about that. That's called second order thinking. So I don't know where that is. I don't know where that could be. But there's going to be so many teams looking for coaches. Like there's so many of them that should be looking for. Think about this, Patrick. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's out there last year, and the Raiders picked Antonio Pierce over him, and he was a Raider at one time. He was a true Raider at one time. Started his coaching career at the Raiders. They picked Antonio Pierce. People don't want to give up this control, even though they can't win with it.
The Bears scored 3 points. 9 sacks for the Pets, I believe. 19-3, a winner. Eberflus is going to make changes to the offensive stat. But as you were talking, I was thinking about Harbaugh here with Los Angeles. So Los Angeles got cute with the advanced analytics and Staley. Think about the difference in that organization. Right now, they brought in a guy with structure and a winner in Harbaugh as opposed to Staley. You don't hear anything but positive vibes coming out of the Chargers right now. It's just completely different.
You don't see him going for it on his fourth down being ridiculous. You see him in 2 backs. You see him run the football. I mean, what did he throw it 18 times in that game? They took control of the game. I mean, look, Chicago, I think Eberflus he's responsible for it. But the biggest problem in Chicago isn't the coaching. The problem is the building of the structure of the team. You play on Lake Michigan, right? It's cold, it's windy, it's rainy. You have the shittiest offensive line. This guy's been sacked. Think about this. David Carr was sacked in the 2002 season 49 times. Okay? Mm-hmm. In 10 weeks. Through 10 weeks of the season, he was sacked 49 times. Caleb is second in this category, sacked 38 times. And Tim Couch was sacked 35 times. I mean, it's just, you can't play with a rookie quarterback. Remember, they said they weren't going to punt all year. They've already punted 45 times. That's 4.5 punts a game. Okay? So, let's be real. The building of this team is completely wrong. They have a nickel running back. They're in 3 receivers. They play in fucking Chicago, Illinois, where it's cold. You can't control the line of scrimmage. But Ryan Poles thinks he's playing Madden. So he's got 3 receivers out there, and he got no toughness to his team. And Eberflus is going to take the bullet on it. He's going to take the bullet. It's almost bizarre to me. This team is poorly constructed. We got Keenan Allen. How many yards did they catch that Keenan Allen averaged yesterday? 5.4. I mean, they can't get the ball down the field because they can't block. It's comical how people just think, we'll take Rome Odunze, the 9th pick. Christ, you can't get the ball to the 2 guys you just paid for, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. And now you drafted, I'm not saying Odunze's a bad player. He isn't. But you could have used somebody else, just like when they signed Montez Sweat. They could have waited until free agency and kept their 3rd-round pick. Hell, this guy doesn't even get crap for giving up a high 2nd-round pick for Chase Claypool. Nobody gives him any crap for anything. This guy's got a license to do whatever. There's sometimes when you become a popular media guy because you build a Madden team, nobody criticizes you.
Michael, they had 11 first downs, the Bears. They were 1 of 14 on 3rd down. They had 69 passing yards, and he was sacked 9 times for 51 yards. That is disgusting. They couldn't run the football. They ran for 73.
They've gone 23 consecutive possessions without scoring a touchdown, right? I mean, first of all, when you hire Matt Eberflus, he should determine what he wants to be his offense to be. But they go ahead and hire Shane Waldron to run the offense. So now he wants to make changes. Here's the problem. This is truly an organizational function problem. How do you make changes to the offense when you're at the mercy of the guy you just hired? See, if you say, look, I'm gonna hire somebody who fits what I do offensively, who does what I want to do, like Jim Harbaugh did. You could say Roman doesn't have a passing game, all those things, but he fits what Jim wants to do offensively. Right? So he does that. You're going to run the ball. This is just okay. We're going to throw the ball all these times. Are you kidding me? We threw for 120 yards. He sacked the most times of any player in the year this year.
Who's going to take the Dallas job? Okay, go ahead. You want to finish that thought?
Well, I mean, this is the 2nd week in a row he's been sacked 6 or more times.
Yeah, it's disgusting. The Eagles, 34-6 over the Cowboys. No Prescott. I get it. They're going to make a change at head coach, but we're talking about the organizational structure and who wants to take these jobs. The Cowboys are in a bad way right now.
I mean, yeah, because you're stuck with Dak. You got Parsons ripping the coach. I mean, what's Parsons doing ripping the coach? He's just missed 3 games, right? I mean, look, I said it last year. This is a talent issue in Dallas. It's a poorly designed team. Jerry has as much responsibility as this on anybody. You can't run the ball. You put Cooper Rush in there. How are you going to score? How are you going to score points with Cooper Rush? Come on. It's really impossible. So for me, it's like I don't get it. Who wants that job? I mean, it's the greatest Dallas Cowboys, but you're dealing with a lot of things that don't involve football down there. Parcells was able to do it, but Jerry was desperate at that time. He was trying to get a stadium built. How desperate is he now? He's going to have serious cap issues. Our job, man.
A lot of ugly football. Here's what we'll do when we come back on the GM Shuffle. We'll go positive because outside of the Lions come back 16 down at the break, we're going to go Steelers-Commanders when we come back. Because I think if you're the Commanders, I think you take positive out of the loss because they didn't play, obviously, their A game, but they were right there with Tomlin and the Steelers. We'll discuss the 28-27 win for the Steelers when we come back here. GM Shuffle, of course, Los Angeles, Monday Night Football with the Rams hosting the Dolphins. We're back. GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
GM Shuffle, of course, the big guy, Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Meagher. Let's go positive, Michael, and let's talk about two pretty good football teams. The Steelers, you talked, Tomlin he's a monster coming off buys, on the road as a dog. This close 2 with Washington laying it. Again, I do think you take positive if you're the Commanders, a 28-27 Russ to Williams to end this game. But let's go positive with the Steelers and Commanders here.
Yeah, I think what you saw was exactly what makes Mike Tomlin a great coach. He basically said to himself on Monday, he got in his room, his bunker in the complex there, and he watched all the Commanders' tape offensively, and he said, okay, for us to win this game, here's what we have to do. We got to make sure that the ball doesn't get outside of us. We can't let Daniels run the football. We're going to contain them with our pass rush in the pocket, and we're going to force them to have to execute their offense and beat us. They're not going to run the ball. Okay? So that's what they practiced all week, and that's what they executed. And now if you're the Commanders, this game plan that you just witnessed is going to be the copycat game plan you're going to see for the rest of the year. In some form or fashion, that's what you're going to see for the remainder of the season. You're going to get that. You're going to get this version based on however it's portrayed to you. Philadelphia, Vic Fangio will do it in his way. But the theme is going to be we have to limit Daniels from running the ball. We kind of set the edge on both sides of the defense, and we have to have a coordinated pass rush inside. Shocking that it's taken this long. But that's why Mike is so damn good as a head coach, because Mike sits in his office on Monday and Tuesday, and then he tells the coaching staff, or they come up with it with him, this is how we have to play the game to win the game. This is how we have to play to win. And then they go out and execute it. And, they kept themselves in. They rushed the ball 43 times in the game. They had 43 rushes in the game, Patrick. And they averaged 3.3 yards a rush. They slowed the game down. They played the style that they wanted to play. They were good on third down. And they held the Commanders to 242 yards because they took away that big playability of the Commanders' offense. They said, okay, you're not going to do this. You're not going to be able to make your explosive plays. The longest pass play, they had a 54-yarder, and then they had a 23-yarder. That was it. Those are the two big plays.
And they dominate time of possession, 36 minutes to 23. They take a former head coach in Arthur Smith. You're watching the game, and he calls a smart game. Tomlin's not going to be intimidated bringing a former coach in, obviously. And it's look, they're sitting atop the AFC North right now, the Steelers. It's incredible.
Arthur did a really good job. Arthur could be a really good head coach. He got destroyed by that front office in Atlanta who bailed on him. He could do, if he had Kirk Cousins, do you think it would be any better with him having Kirk Cousins or Raheem Morris? I mean, think about that. Answer that question.
He'd be fine. Oh, totally.
He would be 6-4 just like Raheem Morris would be, right? Because he didn't have a quarterback. He was trying to play with Desmond Ridder. So, I think to me, but he understands. Look, go to the first game of the year, the way they played Atlanta. Didn't throw the ball in the middle of the field. They understand in Pittsburgh how to play the game to win the game. That's the most essential quality any head coach has to bring to the table. How do I have to play today to win the game? When I see these coaches go out there and run no tempo or go tempo, well, that's what we do. Well, you can't do it in this game. If you go, so he slows the game down. He runs it 43 times, and he controls the ball for 36 minutes. How do you play good defense against Jaden Daniels? Play less defense. I mean, it's just, to me, that's why Mike's so good. That's why Jim's so good. That's what Andy Reid. Do you think Andy Reid really wants to play the way he's playing? Andy Reid wants to be in a track meet, but he knows for him to win at 16-14, he's got to do it. Same with Sean Payton. It's not sexy. It's not going to make Madden but it's the way to win. Where these shitty teams, they just go out there and do what they do.
We're going now, positivity. All right, so let's continue. Yeah. The mark of a good team and a good coach is a team that kind of improves throughout the year. And let's talk about the Cardinals. They disrespected the Jets. 31-6, Murray 22 of 24, including 17 straight in this game. Now, the Jets, who were a disaster, and by the way, they closed as 2-point favorites. They've lost 6 of 7, and the Cardinals head to the bye as a team that is trending upward.
No question. Look, give them credit. I think Jonathan Gannon's done a really good job of coaching this team. This game was over at halftime. It was 24-6 at the half. I mean, it was over. And the Jets don't even score in the second half. I mean, I know we want to be positive in this block, but at what point do we have the conversation that maybe Aaron can't play anymore?
Let's have it.
15. I mean, it hasn't changed. I mean, he's 15 yards is his longest pass play in the game. I mean, they trade for Devontae Adams. He had 6 catches for 31 yards, 5.2 yards a catch. I mean, we can't throw the ball down the field, but this was the problem in Green Bay. Is last year at Green Bay, they couldn't get the ball down the field. To me, that's the telltale sign. Yards per attempt on quarterbacks is the telltale sign, right? And to me, they have no offense. Now, maybe it's because the system's broken. I don't know. But one of the most underlying factors here, too, is how this Jet defense, which everybody refers to this Jet defense as the second coming of the 2000 Ravens, right? I mean, they're on a 5-game heater of giving up over 100 yards rushing. The only team that didn't run for 100 were the Patriots. They ran for 112. But everybody else has been 150 and above. Think about it. You're supposed to be a great defense and you're giving up that many yards? And again, this is another week. You realize they've only against New England in week 3 and against New England in week 8, I think it was. They're the only 2 times they've gotten over 20 first downs as an offense. They had 128 yards. Here's their offensive output the last 2 weeks. 193 against New England and 193 against Houston and 128 against Arizona. Okay, and this defense can't turn the ball. This defense has created 1 turnover in 4 weeks. 1 in 4 weeks. Like
Sauce was getting roasted. Sauce was getting roasted too on social.
But again, they've had great drafts. Joe Douglas is a great general manager. Tremendous. Mm-hmm. They have enormous talent. All this talent that they have. Well, something's got, they have. And remember, Woody said, thinking's overrated. But look, this Arizona team, they have just been really resilient. They got mental toughness, and the Meagher has made a lot of throws. He's played really well. They're the number 2 rush team in the league on yards per attempt. They're the number 9 team in the league in yards per attempt passing. I think Drew Petzing has done one of the best coaching jobs in the league. Nobody talks about it but me. He's done it, but he was doing it good last year. I mean, they were good last year. And, this team has won 5 of the last 6 games. The only game they lost was that Green Bay game. They got blown out.
Also, kind of the juxtaposition of perception. So, obviously, Aaron Rodgers. And by the way, we should talk. That Jets job is going to be open. Who wants it? But Aaron Rodgers and Kyler Murray, if you just came down and watched a football game for the first time, you saw one dude that was completely toast. And Murray, he looked confident. He looked in control of the offense. I love the way that guy calls an offense, by the way.
He's really good. Yeah. And the fact is that they're not great in the offensive line, but they protect him. He's done a good job with being protected. And, they can run the football. Yesterday, Connor made a huge play in the passing game. I think it's really a remarkable story. It's a story of a team coming together. It's a team of coaching. How do we have to play? And I think it's a coaching of expertise. I mean, Petzing has done such a good job running this offense. I mean, he's done a good job with what he has working for him as Ben Johnson's done in Detroit with all the people he has.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
But I think where Petzing separates himself is his ability to run the ball. He can run the ball on anybody.
Connor, all of a sudden, I didn't think much of Connor. That guy's a stud, whether it be running the ball, catching the ball out of the backfield. Yep. He all of a sudden is a marvel.
Yep. He's been great for them.
And Harrison Jr., it's a team right now that's won, 5 of 6 you mentioned outside of the Green Bay game. They've been awesome, getting better on defense as well. Hold the Jets to 6 points. So the Jets going to be looking for a new head coach, probably looking for a quarterback as well. Quickly, the Eagles, 7-2, they take over first place. They won 5 straight. They beat the Cowboys. We talked a little bit about the Cowboys. Maybe focus on the Eagles. What are you seeing that you like from Philly right now?
I think that they're playing more under control than they ever have, right? I mean, I think they kind of know who they are now. And I think defensively they're tackling much better. And they look like they're in better shape this year than they were last year. I think you got to give credit to that. I think they are in better shape. I mean, nobody's gained over since they come back from the bye. Nobody's had more than 18 first downs against them. That was the Bengals. And they got most of them in the first half. They forced 10 turnovers the last 3 weeks. this defense. They've been very good in the red area. They're getting better on third down. They're hard to run the football on. They're playing really good. You can't get a big play against them. The number one team in the league on defense in yards per attempt. I mean, they're a complete team. They're really starting to play the best football. It's like, like I said last week on the pod, Sirianni's tough to root for when he's winning. He's like Lane Kiffin. You're just hard to root for him when he's winning. But the team's playing well. The team's playing well. They haven't given up very many points. They barely won the Jacksonville game, but they were in control of that from the start. I think they're playing really well. It'll be an interesting game against the Commanders at home, and then they go on the road for Los Angeles and Baltimore. And so we'll see. But I think to me, we'll see where the Commanders are this week. That's going to be a real test against, because the Eagles are playing as good as they can play. And when this game was over at the half. I mean, let's face it. I mean, this Cowboy team, they can't score. They can't do anything.
Look at the East right now. Philly, and again, they're going to play Washington coming up on Thursday. 7-2, Washington 7-3, and then you go Dallas 3-6, and the Giants 2-8. That is yikes. Yeah. And then the West right now, Arizona, we just talked about them 6-4. We should come back and talk a little bit about San Francisco and Tampa. Because a win for San Francisco, they moved to 5-4. I was actually impressed with Baker coming out of that. We should discuss that a little bit coming back as they fall to 4-6.
No question.
Because
that game wasn't as close as the score was.
I totally agree.
Baker made one of the greatest plays you're ever going to see. I mean, it was really remarkable. But that game really wasn't as close. I thought that whatever you want to say about Brock Purdy, he made one of the greatest throws you could ever see.
We'll discuss it when we come back here at GM Shuffle. So a lot to do. My gosh, I'm just looking right now. How about the race for the number one overall pick? Elliot was talking about it during the break a little bit. Carolina's now moved to 3-7. New Orleans is 3-7. Chicago falls to 4-5. This is 2-8 for the Giants, 3-6 for Dallas. A lot of bad football. We continue, and we'll get to the Week 10 awards when we return here on the GM Shuffle. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. We continue on the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Okay, GM Shuffle, Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. We're going to get to the NFL Week 10 awards presented by DraftKings coming up in just a bit. We should talk, let's go Vikings-Jags quickly here. There's some interesting stats coming out of it. And again, Darnold, every time I looked up, Michael, it felt like he was throwing a red zone pick. He did have 3 interceptions here. Some crazy numbers. Think about this. Minnesota ran 82 plays to Jacksonville's 43 and won 12-7. They do move to 7-2, the Vikings, but 82 to 43 and a 12-7 win for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville had 143 total yards of offense, 5th lowest in franchise history. I mean, they turned the ball over 3 times in the red zone, right? And yet they couldn't put the ball in. I mean, do you think Mac Jones stays the starter down there? I mean, he's 14 for 22, 2 interceptions. He's acted on the sideline like he did in New England, like it's never his problem. I mean, seriously, it's got to be annoying to everybody. I just think, to me, I was hoping maybe, it was everything wrong in New England, but his fault, right? And now he goes down there and has another dud game, where at least they could move the football. But look, give the Vikings credit. They played shitty, hot day in Florida, and they were able to find a way to win the game as bad as Darnold's played. And Darnold hasn't played good the last 2 weeks, right? And they haven't been able to get that. His week numbers, his first weeks were better than they are now. So they got to figure out a way to get him under control and get him back to where they need to.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. They outgained the Jags 402 to 143 and a 12-7 win. But again, you go on the road, and it's good coaching. Yeah, obviously good coaching on offense and defense there for the Vikings. Pull that out.
But if you took the Vikings in the 7, right? If you laid the 7, that was the right side. I mean, there's no. Yeah. It's like last night we saw it. I mean, if you laid 4.5 or you laid the 3.5, whatever you laid there, you were on the right side, because you turned the ball over 5 times on interceptions. You're +3 in turnover takeaway. You should win. You should cover that number, right? I think, to me, that's pretty clear.
So let's move on here. San Francisco pick up a win in Tampa. It was hot. You're happy to get it. You travel cross country. The Jake Moody conversation, we'll get to him as far as the awards. 23-20. Should they cut him to a game winner with the walk-off? So Moody. Baker, you look at the numbers that are nothing, but it felt like he was, without obviously Evans and Godwin, holding this team in. Bucky Irving ran the ball well for the Bucs, but a big win for San Francisco down in Tampa.
Yeah, a huge win. I mean, they fought their way back. Moody was just terrible. I mean, and Moody was so good in college, too. This was a shock to me, right? I mean, he was so good in college. He was able to make the throws and make kicks when he needed to make them. And he started out bad. I mean, it was ugly. And, he gave up 9 points there. I think if he doesn't make that kick, Kyle probably would have had enough. They'd had to make a change, right? He misses a 49-yarder. A 50-yarder and a 44-yarder, and I mean, misses 3 kicks. Look, Tampa just did everything to hang around in the game. They ran the football effectively, but they couldn't. They threw for 116 yards. But the play he makes against Bosa, when he's got Bosa, it's 4th down. That play against Bosa was the best play of all. I mean,
incredible.
It really was. Now they have to go on their bye week. They come back. I think the second half of the season is going to be really important for Tampa, because I think Tampa was expecting to make a coaching change last year, and they didn't make it because they won. It's going to be interesting to see if they can't make the rally back against Atlanta. Look, Atlanta's beatable. We know that. I think we were right when we handicapped the South. There isn't a great team because Atlanta. If you think Atlanta should win that game.
What are the Falcons? You tell me.
They're a bad defense, and, if you can pressure the quarterback, you got a chance. But they're never going to control a game because they can't get control of the game defensively. I mean, that's just fact. I mean, that's just blatant fact. I mean, look, Derek Carr, if you could pressure Derek Carr was, 16 for 25. He had 2 touchdowns. He played perfectly.
The Bills beat the Colts. Let's throw Elliott a bone here because there is a discussion. Your boy Steichen getting paid. 30-20, so a big lead in the AFC East. The Bills kind of ho-hum. They keep scoring. I don't think it's a very good defense, you can tell me, but Flacco had 4 turnovers. He has 6 turnovers in his last 2 starts. So the question now moving forward, you can touch on the Bills if you'd like, but also what does Indy do with Richardson?
Well, they have no choice but to stick with Flacco because this game would have been a lot uglier if Richardson plays, right? I mean, he might have made a few plays with his feet, but let's be clear here. My belief with Steichen is he's a really good offensive mind. He's a horrible head coach. So it's 20-13, right? It's in the third quarter, and you've got the ball 4th and 2 at I think they were at the Buffalo 20. 4th and 2 at the Buffalo 20. And, you got the game. You're going to go into 4th and 2. You got right? You got 2 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in the third quarter. You got plenty of time. Now, for all those people that say you got to go for it, they don't tell you what happens when you don't go for it, when you don't feel it, right? So they go for it and they don't get it. Oh, momentum that Bill Barnwell says doesn't exist comes swooping into Indianapolis, right? And it takes over, and now all of a sudden you're down 27-13. If you kick the field goal there, you go 2016, okay? Mike Tomlin would have kicked the field goal there. Jim Harbaugh would have kicked the field goal there. John Harbaugh would have kicked the field, especially with a quarterback that doesn't have any movement. You got to call the perfect play at the perfect time, right? You got to know who you are, right? If it's Richardson, maybe you go for it there because he'll make a play with his feet, But if they take away the first number, and you're going against Sean McDermott, who's a very good coach, right? Who's prepared for a lot of shit. Again, he doesn't go for it. They kick it, loses 10 yards. Next thing you know, you're down 27-13. You got no chance to win the game. You're done. It's over with. That decision, you ended the game. But they keep making them. Like nobody calls him out on it. Like, that's what I keep saying. When are you going to get better as a head coach?
So the Indianapolis Colts, sorry, Elliott, fall to 4-6, and the Buffalo Bills improved to 8-2. Let's get to the Week 10 awards, and we'll touch on Monday Night Football. DraftKings crowning moment. You mentioned it earlier. Jake Moody with the winning kick. He went from being cut to potentially with the walk-off there, Jake Moody.
Yeah. And it just got in too, Patrick. I don't know if you watched it. It just made it in the upright. It was barely in there. But before we go on to the next award, as bad as the Colts are, I mean, Denver's in the 7th seed at 5-5. Cincy's 4-6. They're one game out of that. Now, Denver plays, the Chargers play this weekend. That's going to be a great game. Cincy at the Chargers, because that's going to have playoff implications to it, one way or another, right? And Denver's got, Denver's sitting right in this thing at 5-5. If they got Atlanta at home, they opened up think about this. As we go to the fraud of the week, I call the Falcons. Falcons are a 1.5-point dog on the road to Denver.
That says everything you need to know. The market tells you the Falcons are fraudulent. Right? I mean,
I think they, and again, they are. I mean, you can't deny it. They are fraudulent. They
closed 3.5 on the road at New Orleans, Michael. They closed the 3.5-point favorite, lost on the field. The Falcons.
Yep. Look, yep. And had chances, Patrick. They had chances in that game to come back. New Orleans kept them in the game. That was 23-17, or I forget what it was, but there were chances they could have come back in the game, and they just couldn't make a play. They couldn't get that drive. They couldn't get the 2-minute drive going. It was 20-17, and you could have, if they would have scored, they would have covered the number. 124 would have been able to win 24-20, but they couldn't move the ball. I mean, their fourth quarter in that game, you talk about being fraudulent when you need it. See, I think part of this weekend was one team that lost the game was, that with turnovers still won, Minnesota and Detroit, whereas Atlanta has the ball 10 minutes and 47 seconds in the fourth. They have 8 first downs. They're 1 for 4 on third down. They can't score a point. That's all you need to know.
Fraud of the week, the Falcons. Fred Palermo, best game plan goes to whom?
Well, I think the best game plan actually goes to Denver in a losing effort, right? I mean, they kept themselves right in the game. I mean, unfortunately, they got that thing blocked. It's just a shame what happened, but I think, to me, they certainly deserve that. That was a good game plan. They went in, they slowed the game down. And they did everything they needed to do, and the Chiefs just made a play at the end.
On the lam. It's not great for the big city called New York.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sad part. I mean, I'll tell you the hard part now, the Giants and the Jets are on the lam. The hard part is for the schedule. We have Houston and Dallas next Monday night. There's going to be a lot of flex games because there's so many bad teams.
So many. It's gross. If you don't know, now you know. And there's been a theme today. It's about coaching. Vrabel and Belichick on the sideline. They'll have jobs next year. But if you don't know, now you know. Let's go.
You better pay for a great coach. You all this speculation, you better give up the authority in your ability. If you want to win, if winning really matters, don't tell me winning matters. If you're John Mara, don't tell me winning matters to you if you're not willing to change your franchise and give something to a coach. Because if it really is that important and you really want to win, you'll change. Because there's too much evidence that you haven't been able to win what you're doing. You better bring accountability into the building.
Yep, 100%. DraftKings, the crown is yours with the Week 10 awards. All right, let's take a look tonight. Great coach Sean McVay. I think you agree. Pretty good coach. He's hosting your boy, the DJ. Miami in Los Angeles, 2.5 with the Rams laying it.
Well, look, this is Miami season. They go 2-7. The DJ won't be spinning records long down there. I mean, the whole state of Florida hasn't experienced a win all weekend, from the University of Florida to Florida Atlantic to Miami, any of it. I mean, this is it. They got to win this one. To me, the Rams are sitting there with Arizona ahead of them. This is a big game. I think, Tyreek Hill, can he play? He's got that wrist injury. That's going to be critical. But at what point does Mike McDaniel win a big game? That's what I want to know. At what point did he deserve a contract extension when he's 4-10 the second half of the season? Never won. This is a playoff game for the Dolphins tonight because they go 2-7. You can count them out, right? They're done. They're playing for a draft pick.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Would you lay it with the Rams 2.5? Take it.
I took on Russo. I took Miami for that reason. I said, look, this is their season. It's make or break. If you can play Buffalo to 30-27 on the road, then you should be able to go into Los Angeles and play the Rams as tough as anything.
So the theme today as we wrap it up, a lot of bad teams, and you got to pay for a coach, correct?
You better get a good one. Absolutely.
All right, Michael, enjoy your
Absolutely.
Monday. Enjoy the Rams hosting the Dolphins. We'll be back on Thursday. Michael Lombardi, the big guy. Elliot, great job producing. I'm Patrick Meagher. We'll see you next time here on the GM Shuffle.